3,000 rupees is all you need to buy a gun in India. Hello everyone,
I am Rahul.
I am Prasanna Naidu and you are listening to the Right Views podcast. Nikita Tomar, a young student who was shot dead just outside her college. Okay, you must have not heard about this case much because the media didn't highlight this case much as it highlighted the Hathras case. Reasons best known to them, or you may also know the reasons. Let's not get into the details there. Okay, so have you heard about Nikita Tomar, sir?
Yes, actually, Nikita Tomar case is pretty popular only on Twitter, I think. And however, I didn't read or see much on the mainstream media, but it is about a college girl who, a politically concerned or a politically connected person, was interested in this girl and she refused to be associated with him. And he shot her at a very close range in broad daylight, and I think the footage is also available on camera, and that has multiple angles to it because the politically connected boy was from a different religion, and Nikita Tomar was a different religion, so there is a love jihad angle, there is another political angle to it because he is a well entrenched politician, as well as there is a open violence case. So there are multiple angles to this,
And also a media ignorance angle, right?
and media ignorance angle, which I was surprised because on Twitter I thought that was the it was gaining a large amount of following on this topic. And then suddenly I realized that in the mainstream media there is nothing but media silence. I guess they are more interested in Macron these days rather than whatever is happening in India. So, but the question in Nikita Tomar's case that probably is more relevant for today's topic is about the gun violence side of the equation, which is not received as much attention. Is that what you are referring to? You said the guns are very cheaply available.
Yeah, exactly. I'll get to that a bit later. Here, I wanted to say that this such cases, criminal cases, are not so unique kind of in India or anywhere around the world. If you just Google such kind of cases or gun violence in India, also you will get plenty a number of cases. You will find a lot of data, a huge amount of data on the NCRB website itself. You will be kind of shocked if you go through the data available. We'll get into that also. But the point to mention about this media silence and all was that very recently you all heard and watched a lot and the media covered it a lot, the Hathras case. Now what's the difference between these two cases? Both the cases are against violence against women, but there is discrimination. As you can see, Hathras case was covered a lot, and the crime is also, you can say, the gravity is same. Even the crime is different, but the seriousness of the crime is almost same. Here there is murder, there it was gang rape, which later the victim succumbed to her injuries. In this episode, we'll not get into the politics or why media didn't cover it much. But today we are going to talk about the illegal gun market, which is very active in India, mostly in the northern areas of India. So that's why the title Mirzapur se Mewat tak, because Mirzapur is in UP and Mewat is in Haryana, and that is the belt where these gun markets are very active. Illegal gun markets. It's not that it's not active in other places in India.
It is more prominent in these areas, if that's
yes. It is more prominent in these areas.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you just go to the NCRB website, as I said, you will find this data under the table Seizure Under Arms Act. I'll just give you some numbers here. The state seized around more than 33,000 of illegal arms in Uttar Pradesh state itself. Then comes Madhya Pradesh, 14,000 plus. Then comes Rajasthan, 7,127. Then it's Bihar, 3,556. Then it's Haryana, then it's Maharashtra, 2,600. And then it's Haryana, 2,185. So these are the states. That's why I was talking about the northern belt. So most of the states are these: Haryana, then there is Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar. So these are the areas, and Maharashtra was also there. But in Maharashtra, most of these illegal guns don't come from these markets. It comes from other sources, which Rahul sir will explain it in a better way. And you will also come to know, you all must have watched Mirzapur, and you all must have watched some other similar kind of movies and series coming up lately. Nowadays, these filmmakers are more interested in local stories. I don't know what is. I think that's the change now happening from the previous film, which was more focused on cities like Mumbai and things like that. Now it's
Mhm.
going more local. So you must be aware of these terms like katta. They
Uh,
call it for a illegal handmade kind of weapon or a revolver or something. Then there is tamancha. Okay, and if it's a big weapon like AK-47 or a copy of AK-47 or so, then they call it tube light. And if you want it with the magazine, with the cartridges and all, then they say I need a tube light with batteries. So these kind of terms is used locally in these northern states. And in Mumbai, you must have heard a very common term, and that is ghoda. Okay, yeah. So these are some. So I was discussing this with Rahul sir, and he was telling me that these are not the only markets from where these guns you get illegal guns. He was also mentioning to other markets. So Rahul sir, can you jump in here and tell us about those markets?
Yeah, so actually, you have highlighted important data points, and these data points indeed tell a story. But you have to look at these data points in a different, different. You have to slice it in a different ways. So if you look at the sources of these guns, so the sources of these guns are multiple. So first of all, they are illegally. So there are actually two types of guns. One is the actually well produced, authorized or genuine guns, which are illegally present in the country. So these are genuine guns. These are made by popular companies like
Okay.
like across the world, including US companies, including Israeli companies, including Chinese, and all sorts of gun manufacturers across the world who make guns. These are genuinely manufactured guns, but they are in India without proper trade. So they are illegally brought into the country. Now, if you remember, there was a weapons drop in Orissa where a plane was dropping off weapons. Purulia arms drop case. This is long back. So if you look at Purulia arms drop case, it is a catchment of, it's a boxes of weapons being airdropped. Sorry, Purulia is in Bengal, and this unauthorized arms were dropped by an aeroplane. Okay, and this aeroplane dropped this, just like para-dropping weapons, and they dropped this huge chunk of guns and arms in West Bengal district. Now this is long back. I mean, we are talking about I think 94, 95, or that sort of time. So basically, we'll come to the reason why it was dropped there and not anywhere else. But this is genuine guns being dropped into India. Okay, so this is one sort of source. The second source is basically guns which are confiscated because they are part of crimes, and they are not claimed, but they are genuinely held, or they were genuinely brought into the country, but they were part of some crime and they're confiscated by police. And then nobody wants to claim that gun now because it's in part of the crime. And those the police have, let's not say it in so many words, but the police have managed to sort of monetize. Okay, so that is the second source. And the third source is what you're referring to is weapons which have been manufactured in in small arms in workshops. These are workshop manufactured weapons, and this predominantly the manufactured weapons are predominantly coming from this belt, which is UP Bihar belt, and that is so these are the three sources. There is also illegal weapons smuggled into India by Pakistan, by Dawood gang, by these Chinese, and also in the northeast from the Myanmar side. So these are shipped into India to create unrest within India. They are sort of anti-national forces at play. And
so I think in the northeastern side, these guns come are through the Maoist belt. Or
so not northeast. Northeast is it's more the northeast separatist movement.
Separatist, yeah. Insurgents are there, yeah.
Yes, those movements, the Naga movement and all that, those are there. But in Bengal and Bihar region, it is more Maoist who are sourcing these guns. But in UP and Bihar, the overlap that is manufactured guns. Now this is predominantly, if you see, UP, the belt starting basically, from let's say Haryana onwards.
If you want to simplify, I think three sources we can say. One is legally acquired gun, which is made from a well-known company, and you pay whatever is required with the license, you get it. Other is this smuggled variety, which is also made from a reputed company, yes, but it is smuggled.
Yes. Okay.
And the third is this locally made, homegrown kind of stuff, which does not have any license, does not have any number, nothing. It's like a black market.
There is one more which is officially made, but it is specially made for this infiltration and smuggling kinds. So these guns do not have a serial number, and they don't have so these are made by you can say made by Pakistan, China, these kinds of.
So we can say black market. We can say black market, but outside the country black market.
Yeah, but they are genuine weapons. They are not small people manufacturing, like few people coming together and manufacturing. These are not startup operations. These are well-funded, proper, operations, like equivalent to some of our, ammunition factories that we have. Some of these ammunition factories can be deployed to create weapons which do not have serial numbers and which do not have any, markings. They are untraceable weapons. So they are also made, and they are shipped and smuggled into India also. So those are the four types. So
and by the way, to the listeners, the number which I quoted in that NCRB data, all that number was about unlicensed arms. So if we combine the licensed one and all that stuff, it is much more. Okay,
it is much more. It is much more. So there are variety of these weapons, and if you look at the belt between Haryana onwards till Bihar, the primary reason for the small manufacturers making these guns is because of the lack of law and order. So because there is no law and order, and there is less of police protection, or the police protection is also tied in with the local, whatever power and political dynamic. So when, particularly when Mulayam Singh Yadav's government was there, it was notorious that everyone, including the police, were part of his thugs, gangs. So,
but if you point out the law and order, then it's kind of a circle, right?
No, it's not. Actually, this is so. If you want to go to the history, basically this is the belt which organized the resistance against the British. Okay, So back in 1857 and thereafter, they started creating the template for manufacture of weapons to be used against the British in an armed revolt. In fact, if you remember in our famous Chandrasekhar Azad, he
I think
himself
Ram Prasad Bismil also
he used
was
a
from
he
he was from UP itself.
yes, and Chandrasekhar Azad also used this small arms manufacture. You can call it katta or whatever,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't fire at the last
Okay.
minute. And that is the problem with these weapons, because they are not manufactured with the tolerances and manufacturing practices of the world class manufacturers. So they fail, the failure rate is very high. But what happens is that for a small time person, like a person who wants to protect his family against thugs, having this weapon, maybe it may not fire, not fire, but having the weapon and pointing it in case of an event, that gives him some sort of a protection. And that is why these people bought or they buy these weapons since probably 1980s, 90s, because that time the law and order situation started deteriorating substantially. I mean, UP, Bihar, and this belt was never known for a very well developed and well evolved law and order situation, but it started becoming worse after, more recently. It's become really worse, and particularly when law and order deteriorated substantially after Mulayam and Mayawati and these came into power. So it is a natural instinct of people to want to protect themselves, and that's where this small manufacturers found their market, that they could manufacture a weapon which may not work. Because see, how many times, even if, and this is the question, actually it is very important to know what is the licensing procedure. If you want a gun in this country, you have to apply for a license to the commissioner of police of your domicile, wherever you are, and you apply with application key, you apprehend some threat to your life, and then it is the discretion of this commissioner whether in his assessment do you in fact have a threat to your life. And then he goes through all the criminal cases or whatever kind of records that you have, and then some investigation is done as to how threatening you are to the society. And then, you can imagine, after lot of scrutiny, you are and lot of discretionary power available to the police, then you are given a license to own a gun, and then you have to buy a gun, you have to get trained to use this gun, and then you have to keep it serviced in condition, right? Any gun is a fine mechanical machine, okay? If you don't keep it serviced, if you don't keep it oiled, if you don't service it, if the springs are rusted, that won't fire.
Right.
Okay. But the thing is, the presence of a gun is a game changer, because gun has a range. Knife doesn't have a range. So knife is a different kind of weapon. In modern thing, if you have like a distance between you and, let's say today in Mumbai, many people want a gun, because while driving on the roads, the situation has become so tense that, almost people I have seen get down from the car with a screwdriver or, some spanner or something like that, and start abusing each other. In such cases, particularly, a normal person who is a very simple person, he feels threatened because some, person who's physically intimidating, it just comes out of the car and wields something like a spanner or just a small stick or a screwdriver, which is about, 2 feet long, and his life gets in danger, and he doesn't have a weapon to counter him. And guns are very easy weapons for him to sort of neutralize the balance of power in that situation. He may not use it, but just the presence of a gun gives him comfort. And this was predominantly happening in UP, Bihar, because it was genuinely, people were afraid of their life and property, and they would buy these guns. Now, many of these guns are bought by people who are already licensed holders of guns. So, UP, you have a lot of the licensed gun owners are also very high, but they are licensed for like 20,000 guns are licensed, and actual number of guns is like 5 lakh. So that is the difference. And if one person has gun, then another person needs a gun. So
Right.
it's a spiral. So if few people have gun in this in your society, then you also better have a gun, because then you are in a big trouble. So that also creates a cycle, and that's why it perpetuates this. Now, if you see, these are small arms like revolvers, katta, but then there are bolt action rifles, which were predominantly made by these Maoists and these bandits, famous Phulan Devis of the world. So these bandits, which were their area of operation was around Chhattisgarh, today's Chhattisgarh, the boundary of Chhattisgarh and UP. That used to be including Mirzapur, and I have been to Mirzapur myself for like more than 6 months. And the thing is that when you move from Mirzapur to east side, the belt is predominantly, there were bandits. It was a bandit belt. Even the trains, the railway, we have a railway police, which is RPF. So RPF has a special team which they enter the train at the stations before, like including Mirzapur. They would enter the station at Mirzapur till the train crosses into West Bengal, into one of the, I don't remember the railway station. They would get off there and they would board the other train which is coming, and they would patrol these railway lines also. So this area was known for its bandits and thugs and Maoist.
I hope these policemen have proper guns, not a lathi.
these policemen have guns. Yes, they did have guns, but they were bolt action guns again. And till very recently, about 2000 2001, most of these Maoists and the bandits, they used old style weapons. These bolt action, or not automatic weapons. But since 2000, particularly since 2007, 5, 7, I think, these guys, the Maoists and these, they are not now bandits are no longer there, but these gangs are there, and they don't use they see small arm manufacture, those weapons they don't use. They use properly manufactured weapons, but which don't have a serial number, so you can't trace them back. So remember, in some of these old cases where we found people in Kargil, in terrorists, and we tried to trace the weapons back to Pakistan. Some had the Pakistani markings, but some did not have, because these are unmarked weapons. So these kinds of weapons are also there, and they are found in these Naxal belt. These are criminal gangs only now. You cannot call them bandits anymore.
Yeah, so, and these gangs are very active in these regions. I mean, I am born and brought up in Mumbai, and Mumbai is obviously famous for its gangs, which was there previously in 80s and 90s. But I am 94 born, and from my birth, I haven't witnessed such gang culture in the city itself, at least. From what I've seen, it is not gangs, at least so visible.
See, Mumbai gangs were different. Okay. I mean, Mumbai gangs, if you go into the history of Dawood and Mumbai gangs, before Dawood there was Haji Mastan. And these gangs were more smuggling gangs, and they were smuggling gold, because Indira Gandhi just, clamped down on everything which is sensible. So there was a sensible demand, and there were sensible suppliers of gold from Middle East and Dubai, and they took advantage of this, but they were not drugs and these kind of smugglers. But once that
And it was
channel is
started.
established,
Yeah.
once that channel is established, and the gold became normal, they opened gold imports, so they became unemployed. So now these channels are established. The whole network of Hawala, which is how to transfer this money, was established. And now there is nothing to transfer, there is nothing to trade. So they started trading drugs. And that was the main thing in 1980s. Drugs were
I
big
think
thing.
even alcohol was there because of the prohibition thing.
Yeah, alcohol was there, but alcohol never, you can't bring so much quantity of alcohol through sea. The main thing was gold biscuits. They're easy, they're high value, and they're easy. Diamonds and gold were the most dominant, and of course, platinum and all, they may also be bringing those. But that was the main dominant trade. So Mumbai gangs were different, and if you see their gang wars, they were not for claiming political power. They were only claiming the criminal distribution network within Mumbai. So if you have a gang war, they won't. And in fact,
this is my area. That is your area.
Yeah, in fact, actually, in 2000, in the year 2000 May, I was at the spot in Bandra where a shootout took place, and one sharpshooter was killed by the police right in front under my office in Bandra. And that guy had a revolver with white revolver, steel revolver with white grip, and the police were saying, how much this revolver costs, and they were telling us that this revolver is costing more than, and this is a better revolver than any of us have. And that guy was some well recognized shooter, and but they were amongst them. They were not claiming political power. They were claiming the illegal trade, and they were fighting amongst themselves. So that was a different kind of thing. It took a different turn in 91, where it became a terrorist link operation, and then they started smuggling weapons and RDX and all sorts of things, and then it became a proper terrorist network. But before that, it was a gold smuggling network. It was not a terror network. In fact, the 91 blast, the people Yaqub Menon employed were also not the terrorists. They were smugglers, and they did not know what they were smuggling. And so this network is not, good enough to handle manufactured that to poorly. They can't use these kattas and these kinds of weapons. They need proper weapons. And then they started accessing AK-47s and Sanjay Dutt, and the story where they access really high-tech, high-end weapons which even the police did not have.
Right.
But UP Bihar, that is because, see, now here you have wealthy gangsters wanting weapons, and they had high quality weapons, better than the police. In UP Bihar, that's the local people like you and me who want protection against police and other people, other thugs and bandits and Naxals who have rudimentary weapon. Okay. And this is the local protection. So, I cannot pay the kind of premium that the gangsters in Mumbai were able to pay. So they had sophisticated weapons. I would pay only 1500, 2500 back in 91, 90. And that is where I used to get a manufactured weapon. And this manufacturing was aided by a lot of manufacturing activity around Kanpur and this belt, where they had small lathes. Now, if gun can be manufactured on a lathe. It's not a big deal. Or lathe and few machines if you have, which any traditional workshop of 1990s would have. You can easily manufacture a gun. How well you manufacture it depends on your craftsmanship and how well it works, because it's a very simple mechanism. The modern revolver is not a complicated mechanism. It's a very simple mechanism. So it's that way it is very elegant, and it's very easy to manufacture. But to manufacture with tolerance so that it doesn't explode in your hand and kill you, and it definitely kills your enemy. That requires some artisanship, craftsmanship, which is not available today. But it, after a lot of unemployment in this sector, in this area, the higher quality manufacturers were available who worked in factories and they were out of jobs, and they said yes, मेरे को 500 रुपया मिलता है, तो why not, for a 10 rupee job he's getting 500 bucks, but he's
Yeah, and one major reason I read while researching about this topic is there were these ordnance factories and all where legally guns were manufactured in regions near UP and Bihar and there. And then, due to many reasons, these factories were shut down or workers were laid off, and these workers then had no job. But they had the skill that how to make a gun. They know, so
exactly.
so they started their own kind of illegal
Yeah,
startup
yes.
of gun making.
It is to a certain extent, yes, and not just ordnance factories, because gun making per se is not a very dramatically, particularly that revolver katta types, is not a very high tech weapon. Okay, and you need it to work only first 4 to 3 times. That's the whole game, because these people who are buying them, they are not there to buy.
They are not there to use it every day or very frequently.
Yeah, so they are not the gun enthusiasts. Okay, they are there for that emergency protection that you want and you need it, and that's why they use this as a threat more than they might not want to even use it, but it's like a threat. Like in a group that happens.
But some people want to use it, but for a short term fund, like in this case of Nikita Tomar. So this guy would have acquired the gun legally, but he was not eligible, or maybe
no, the thing is, once you become, once you create, set up this infrastructure for this kind of thing, like then they also gain skill. Nobody is without skill. If you make only 10 guns, your skill will be, very crude. Whereas if you make 1,000 guns, then your skill will start improving. And then the people who are using your 1,000st gun, they can use it more reliably, and they will be more than in the gun connoisseur range. This is a new weapon and it works fine as any other weapon, and it is available for cheap. So the whole point is that when you make gun ownership very difficult, and it's not even, there is no judicious process for you to claim a gun. Like, let's say if you go and apply for a gun license, it is not that easy that the policeman, because you don't have any criminal cases, you don't have any disputes, so you will get a gun. No, it's not like that. They'll say you don't need a gun, and then they will refuse it. The effect of this, what happens is that people who are genuinely at risk of this random events, they don't have guns. Whereas the goons and the bandits, they get their guns somehow, and they end up with the guns, and then that becomes very problematic, and that supports this illegal gun trade. Now, if you really go after all the guns, this trade will go off. And if you really want a genuine gun, a well-made, Walter PPK or some of the well-known Smith and Wesson kind of gun, which Hollywood movies they use, that kind of gun, then the prices go up to 2 lakh, 3 lakh rupees. The pistols. So
I can get 1,000 guns in that.
And the thing is that for you, who is not a gangster, who is not a Naxal, or who is not a bandit, you don't want the reliability of that, for 100 times you will pull the trigger, it will fire 100 times. You are not going to pull the trigger 100 times. You are going to pull the trigger once or twice in life. And that is the only time it has to work. That's all. The rest of the time it has to be just shown, this is a threat. That's all. And if that gun is costing so high, it becomes a problem. And then, it is okay if no one has guns, it's okay. So that's the problem in US. US, you have to buy a gun because there are people roaming around with guns. So better a good guy with a gun than a bad guy with a gun. Here, the bad guys already have guns. So until you close that down, the good guys will want this 500, not 500 anymore, but 5,000 rupees or 7,000 rupee gun.
Yeah, but after doing this basic research, only a basic research about this, I have kind of been, I don't know, maybe at least for some time I'll be quite suspicious about people around me because the numbers, the numbers speak a lot, right?
No.
For example, I just went through an article which said that there are around 40 million firearms, only about 5.5 million of them are licensed. About India, I am talking. Okay.
Yeah.
And like you may be traveling in a public transport and the guy beside you may have a gun and you don't know. And that is possible. I mean, yeah, that is completely practical, right?
It is, but it doesn't work that way. I mean, like, most of the time, if you look at the population size of India and the number of weapons that we have very less weapons. And most of these, like, you might say ki 5 million are licensed and 45 million are existing. Out of these 45 million, which are, 40 million which are unlicensed, they are mostly with those 5 million only. See, there are five.
No,
So
good
it's
point.
not like, like the gun connoisseurs, like if you have license for 2 guns, you may actually have 15 or 25 guns at your place. Okay. So you are the owner of 25 guns, but you have license for only 2.
Got
Okay.
it.
So that happens a lot, mostly. So the number of people associated with guns are less, relatively few. The number of guns may be more. So it's not like, everyone is having one gun, then it's a problem. Then, that will be a problem. 45 million people roaming around each with one gun is a worse situation. And it's not mostly like that. It is mostly, like 2 million people having 45 million guns with them. It's something like that.
Right.
And these are very sensitive people who are connected politically, who are mostly their politicians or corrupt bureaucrats. It's not common people who don't have guns.
Yeah. So we have actually covered few reasons I was planning to talk about now. So can we talk about more of the reasons and the solutions for it? Like reasons for these illegal manufacturing hubs. We know that unemployment is there of those skilled labors. One point is the crime rate is also very high in the northern belt. So what is the reason? One is I think unemployment again.
See, it is actually a self-reinforcing cycle. So because the crime rate was high, I mean lack of law and order, you had illegal gun manufacture. Okay. Rather, you can say that because crime rate and law and order was not there, crime rate was high, therefore employment was low, and therefore illegal gun manufacture was a good business, and illegal guns present in the hands of unemployed people makes a crime rate go up, and law and order situation deteriorates. It's a spiral. Okay. So the first thing is when you improve law and order, and we have on this channel we have always talked about how law and order is the basic reform that needs to be done. If you have law and order in place, the minute you have law and order in place, all these problems go away because you don't need to be threatened, and guns exist. Any illegal activity happens because there is a demand for it. If you take away the demand, people start feeling safe that I may not have the gun, but when I dial that 100 number, like last time I told you, I dialed 100 number, nobody picked up, right? So if in someone in UP dials that 100 number, that police van armed with sophisticated weapons comes to his door within a minute. Okay, he will not need any gun. And all these illegal manufacturers, they will manufacture something else which he needs. Okay. So take away the demand, and automatically this problem will solve itself. And people in India are not interested in keeping guns. The reason for these guns was a threat from bandits, from Naxals, and a lack of protection afforded by the law. Now, in British times, there were no guns, but people felt really safe because British really, imposed cruelly, in fact, in many cases. They eliminated tribes of bandits just by hanging all of them without due process. That is a separate thing, but they eliminated crime. They went after crime. The minute you end that, you will find that this demand for illegal weapons goes off. This will not, however, kill the illegal weapons which are with Mumbai gangsters.
Right. Yeah.
Because they have there's
a different network.
Different. Yes, the logic is completely different. And but this belt will be rid of all this.
Yeah, and because it is not only like one guy who is into this illegal manufacturing of guns and all those, the guy who is also purchasing it is not only involved in one illegal crime. Exactly. They are involved in multiple things.
So they are first illegal. They are criminals. Okay, they may not. They are politically connected thugs and goons who want to impose themselves on the people, and that's why they are buying these illegal guns. And they can't buy a gun because they already have a variety of offenses registered against them.
Okay. Exactly.
So they are already, jailbirds, as we call them. So they are already there. They are already on the wanted list of some sort. Okay, either directly or in connection with some wanted fellow. So if if you apply the same process of gun license application as what I get, they will never get a gun. So they have to rely on this. And there are not just one, number of illegal people in India, in UPBR, corrupt politicians and corrupt bureaucrats indulging in anti-national and state activities. You can imagine there's a lucrative market.
Right.
And they're goons. Like each person has got like a couple of vans full of goons on his payroll.
Right. You are opening a very deep topic now. Let's not get into that. Okay. So what are the solutions for this? One is obviously the basic thing which will reform a lot of the whole, like a lot of it is the judicial reforms which we are talking about, and the police reform.
Yes.
But apart from that,
clamp down on law and order. 80% of your problems in all our podcast episodes, the first you can say this is a solution to that. And and we are talking about only two things. One, when a crime happens, the perpetrator is caught very quickly. And second, the punishment, whatever is given in the law, is given to him right, in very quick time. And he suffers that punishment fully. Not he is out on bail, roaming around. That sort of thing is not there.
And committing other crimes.
So when you have this thing that he has committed a crime, 6 years imprisonment is there. He is caught immediately in like 10 days, 5 days, 10 days. And, in 6 months, he is already in the jail, starting the sentence. All appeal process, everything is done in 6 months. And then he is already, behind bars. If you see this, your crime rate will immediately go down and the demand for illegal weapons will go away very quickly.
Absolutely. But apart from that, do you think entrepreneurs can do something in this sector by creating more employment in that bit?
See, that again goes back to law and order. So
entrepreneurs are scared.
Yes, actually, if you see during Lalu Prasad's one of the daughter's weddings or son's wedding, I forget. He has so many sons and daughters that it's difficult to keep a track. That they just took over all the vehicles from a Tata showroom, all the vehicles, brand new, and after whatever 10 days of that wedding, they returned it. And they said, how is this a crime? We returned the vehicles. And it was appalling, and then Tata said, we will not run any showrooms in Patna and this belt.
Oh my
So
goodness.
if you have this kind of a law and order scenario, you will get less business opportunities, less, employment, and you will suffer economically. So if you ensure law and order, and then Tatas will open that showroom, there will be 5 people employed in that showroom at senior level, whatever, selling those cars. But how can you, just because of there is a wedding, all the cars they took away. That time I think Sumo was there, saying, shadi thi, le liya. And then they returned it. So how is it a crime? We returned it. It's unbelievable, and they were unable to grasp that this is a crime.
Oh my god.
And one final thing I think we can say is that porous borders are one reason where unmarked weapons come through. This is Nepal. Nepal border is particularly notorious for this. Rampur area, they get weapons from Nepal border.
Nepal border is, critical for almost smuggling anything, I think, including persons.
Yes, that is true. But Nepal border, Bangladesh border, Burma border, these have become hotbeds for smuggling in weapons. And they are not as watched as the Arunachal border, where we are watching Chinese and other borders on the Pakistan side. You also get weapons from smuggling from Dubai and all these things. But if you control that is one area, one other area to control illegal weapons.
Yeah, so, but the land border we have is very huge, and that's the reason we cannot do it properly.
No, we can do it. I mean, if we decide to do it, we can do it. I once crossed into Mizoram and I was put through an extensive search whether I have alcohol or not, because Mizoram is a dry state. And the entire bags they went through my bags, they went through my luggage. They were helpful because it's an interstate crossing. But if that is the kind of checking that goes on, and this was at night, something like 2 o'clock in the night. So if you decide to do it, you can do it. If you don't want to do it, then you can't do it. And the whole problem is that some officer there, he takes bribes and lets these in. Otherwise, how illegal Rohingyas came in? I mean, forget that.
Without the support of some part of the state machinery, no crime is possible.
No crime. No, and I will tell you, in Silchar, one of the fellows said, I can sell to Bangladesh. So I said, how can you sell to Bangladesh? There's a border. So he said, can you see the marshland in front of my, across the road? Said, yes, that marshland is the border, in between the marshland. So he said, then how will you, because it's a marshland, it's a Sundarban kind of a marshland, how will you cross it? So he said, can you see those buffaloes? Said, yeah, they are Bangladeshi buffaloes. They are going to go back to Bangladesh in the evening. I will put things on them, they will go back. Very good. Contactless delivery.
Okay, so let's end this episode at this note. And hope you all enjoyed I think we must not use the word enjoyed, but yeah, this episode was quite informative. And please share the episode and also follow us here to get notified about the new episode. Thank you.
Thank you.